Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ta'ala ala Sayyidil Mursaleen wa alihi wa sahbihi wa barak wa sallam. All praise are due to Allah, Lord of the worlds, and peace and blessings be upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad and his companions forever. My beloved brothers and sisters, to our friends, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So alhamdulillah, this is another evening of the New Muslim Corner. And the intention of the corner, it was not originally meant to be formal lectures, but it was an opportunity for people who have recently embraced Islam or for people who are reviving their Islam to come together and learn about the foundations of the faith and also have a chance to ask questions that they might not be able to normally ask. And so we have been looking at the pillars of faith, the foundations of Islam itself. And tonight, which is the last class in our series during this winter season, we want to begin a special topic, at least to give a general overview and to open up the door to this special topic. I hope it's not, as they say, opening Pandora's box, if you understand what that means. But this is a very important issue, and by popular demand, we need to discuss this. And the idea is to really be practical and to bring some practical solutions to the problems we are facing. However, the basis of everything we do is Islam. And so we need to look at the Islamic position in terms of dealing with this in order to understand where we are at and then to look at where we are going. I want to quote from some of the texts of a great Islamic scholar, Sheikh Yusuf al-Qaradawi, rahimahullah. And he has a text, Al-Halal and Haram in Islam, which I consider to be one of the more balanced books dealing with different aspects of Islamic jurisprudence. So it's different aspects of life that he is dealing with and trying to bring a balance. So this is the important thing about this scholar. And I wanted to quote from him. Instead of just freewheeling, I wanted to use what he's saying as a basis so that we can begin to develop a framework in how we are looking at male and female relationships, sexuality within Islam. And so the Shaykh rahimahullah talked about first creation, like what is the purpose of creation and humanity's creation. And he basically said, and this is only one section of what he said, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, glory be to him, created man or humanity as his vicegerent. So vicegerent means like representative. So it's the representative of God on earth in order that he might populate and rule it. So literally, part of the reason why we're here is to rule the earth, because we are given an advantage over other creations. Then he said, obviously, this purpose cannot be realized unless the human species perpetuates itself, living, thriving, cultivating, manufacturing, building, and worshiping its creator. Accordingly, the creator has placed certain appetites and impulses in man, meaning humanity, so that he is impelled towards the various activities which guarantee the survival of the species. So in other words, looking at ourselves in a realistic way, there's a spiritual side to us. We have an aql, we have intelligence, we have a soul, but there is also a physical side. And so that physical side that we have, where you literally have desires, he's using the term appetite, but it means you are desirous of certain things. And these desires you'll see also in other forms of creation. You'll see them in the animal world, in the insect world. These desires are set up in order to help us to survive. So it moves us towards survival. And among the appetites which an individual must satisfy for his personal survival is that of food and drink. Okay, so naturally, we have thirst. Thirst comes on us. Hunger comes. And that's something that comes to us naturally in order to not just enjoy the types of food, but it's literally to survive. Because without liquids, without sustenance, our bodies cannot survive in the world. The sexual appetite, however, is for the purpose of the survival of the species. So sex is satisfaction and fulfillment. And so the desire for sexuality between male and female is really, we believe, the basis of it is survival. So the basis of this desire is procreation. It's in other words, to have children and to sustain, the human race. That's the basis of sexuality. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in His mercy, He has also put a type of satisfaction in this, and even a type of fulfillment. So these are all involved, but this is actually part of the drive, the drive of sexuality. Of course, the greatest drive that we have is survival. So that is what will make everything change. If your life is in danger, to survive, literally, changes everything, okay? So, and then there's other different desires. So we're looking at the idea of sexuality. So again, I want to set a framework for this, and then we can open up the floor for general discussions concerning this. But he said that the responses in response to sexuality, so human beings are in three basic camps, and this could be extended, but for purposes of our discussion, three basic camps. The first approach is to satisfy one's sexual need freely with whomever is available and whenever one pleases, without any restraint of religion, morality, or custom. Okay, so this is the first approach. This is the position of the advocates of free sex, for they do not believe in any religion. Okay, this philosophy reduces the human being to the status of an animal, and if practiced universally, would result in the destruction of the family structure, and of all society. So this is the words of Sheikh Yusuf al-Qaradawi, right, bringing the approaches to sexuality. So the first is unrestricted. So that is what you could call like hedonism. Okay, and that approach, and I put a little heart here, Valentine's Day? Okay, so Valentine's Day, this is something which is from ancient society, because this is the symbol of Ishtar, who was also known as Aphrodite to the Greeks, and as Venus to the Romans, was the goddess of love. And through that concept that they understood their relationships. And Aphrodite had a little agent who carried out, her wishes. His name was Eros. Eros. The Romans called him Cupid. You probably heard of Cupid before. Okay? So, but Eros is an important name which comes even in our language. And that's where you get erotica. So when you say something is erotic, okay, that means it's sensual to you. So it is bringing on the desire for sexuality. It's erotic. So that comes from Eros, okay, who is, according to the Greek understanding and the people of the ancient times, is a servant of Aphrodite or Venus. In Iraq and in Lebanon and Syria and other places, she was known as Ishtar. Ishtar. And it's interesting because Ishtar has come into now, in the last few years, this has become a powerful force in our society. And I can recall some years back, and it's not that long ago, where the erotica, even in this society, was restricted to a certain extent. In television, in the movies, and in society itself. And then they had what is called, it was in the 60s, some people called it the sexual revolution. So this sexual revolution, there were certain aspects of life that changed people's relationship. One of them was birth control pills. Okay, so birth control pills would mean that people could have relations and there'd be no danger, basically, of having children. Okay? Then also, clothing. In clothing, there was spandex, right? Spandex, type of clothing. And so relationships started to change radically. Okay, and this got deeper and more advanced till it reached, even in the past 10 years, it has gone almost out of control. And this is where Ishtar, actually many people believe, is coming to the surface. And it's surprising because in Mesopotamia, Ishtar's time of the year, we have different seasons. And the people who follow the sun look at the different seasons to base their religions. So this is now winter solstice. And when it goes to December 21st, that is the shortest day of the year, the darkness, right, in the northern countries. So this is the winter solstice, and it is in this time that they used to put out fires and lights, and they believed that the sun god, had vanished, and they made sacrifices. And so these are the pagan ceremonies that brought about the holiday known as Christmas, right? And I'm not going to go into it. If any of you want to know that, say holiday myths and go into YouTube, look for my name. You can get a lecture on it. If you want a book, you can go to my website, hakimquick.com, and you can get a book, Holiday Myths, The Origin of Christmas. Okay? The spring solstice, that is the time of the conquest of light over darkness. It's spring. So the winter is gone, and flowers start coming back. And so this is the time of Ostre or Easter. And that is the Easter ceremonies, right? And when you say the word Easter, which is a Christian holiday, what is the first thing that comes in your mind when I say the word Easter? Kites? Okay, that's different. Well, what else? What else comes in your mind? So I say the word Easter?
Resurrection.
Okay, resurrection, which is a good Christian answer. Right, but I'm saying for most people, if you say Easter, what's the first thing that comes in your mind? Bunny rabbits. It's Easter, man. Eggs, right? These are fertility symbols. This is a fertility cult of the spring, because that's when life is coming back, right? Fertility. And Christianity joined the fertility cults, right? So you had the resurrection of Christ, right? Life after death, just like spring is life after death in the northern season. Okay? Summer solstice, that's around June 21st. These are right with the height, where you have the longest days of the year. Okay, the heat in the northern countries. So this was the time of Ishtar. This is the time of Venus and Aphrodite. And they used to have special ceremonies in June, especially. It became a special month for the people of this heightened erotica sexuality. And you'll be surprised to know the symbol of Ishtar. You know what the symbol of Ishtar was? The rainbow. I'm not making this up. That was Ishtar's symbol, rainbow. So what we're seeing happen now is the return of this. And this erotica, Ishtar concept of society is becoming predominant on people's thinking now. and it is going out of control within our society itself. Okay, so that's one side of this approach to sexuality, the extreme erotica and hedonism. Okay, the other approach to sexuality, according to Yusuf al-Qaradawi, rahimahullah, and it is a way of, an Islamic way of looking at it. And that is his words, I'm quoting him, so it's not just me talking. He said, the second approach is to suppress and to try to annihilate the sexual drive. This approach is advocated by aesthetic schools and other worldly philosophies. This approach leads towards monasticism and escape from the world. Such advocacy of suppression of a natural appetite, or rather annihilation of its functioning, is contrary to Allah's plan and purpose, and is in conflict with the course of the natural order, which requires the use of this appetite for the continuation of life. Okay? So one side, this is suppression now. And that is the groups. You see it in some extreme religions where it leads to monkism. It leads to celibacy. Okay? And you even had a group in Christianity called Opus Dei. And this is a group of Christian zealots. And they were so extreme that if the man looked at a woman in the wrong way, he would go home and he would whip himself. So he would give himself 20 lashes because he looked at a woman in the wrong way. And that's suppressing something which is a natural thing. It's a natural thing. But they suppress it. And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, La rahbaniya fil Islam. There is no monkism in Islam. No celibacy. This is not the Islamic way. Okay? So you got the two extremes now. All right? Now, the Islamic approach, and this is what Yusuf Qaradawi, again, in his approach is saying. The third approach is to regulate the satisfaction of this urge, allowing it to operate within certain limits, neither suppressing nor giving it free rein. This is the stand of revealed religions, which have instituted marriage and prohibited fornication and adultery. In particular, Islam duly recognizes the role of the sexual drive, facilitates its satisfaction through lawful marriage, and just as it strictly prohibits sex outside of marriage, even what is conducive to it. It also prohibits celibacy and the shunning of women, okay? So I'm just putting this as a basis, right? So we have a scholarly basis for the discussions that we want to have in this discussion of marriage in Islam, of gender relations in Islam. So the third approach, which is the Islamic approach, is to fulfill sexuality within limits. And the limits that came through revealed religions is marriage. So it is a restricted relationship, but it is not suppression. It is not suppression. Okay? And Islam, all of the great religions, but Islam, of all the religions still, because we still have our sources, strictly forbids fornication and adultery. It is a serious thing, and for the new Muslims here, you will see we put great emphasis on not falling into fornication and adultery. And the reason of this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran itself, وَلَا تَقْرَبُ الزِّنَا إِنَّهُ كَانَ فَاحِشَةً وَسَاءَ سَبِيلًا. Allah said, do not come close to fornication and adultery, because it is an abomination and it will destroy everything in your life. It'll destroy everything. So Islam took a strong stance when it comes to fornication and adultery. And scholars looked at this because, with many other sins, it says, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا النَّفْسَ الَّتِي حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ. Do not kill people, right? Do not lie. Generally it says, do not do this sin. That's how the Quran comes. Here it said, don't come near it. You see the difference in the two? It didn't say don't do it. but said, don't come near it. Okay? So, which is an added emphasis on this, and which is found within Islamic societies. So that is really the basis of our relationships, the general attitude that we have. To put it in our language, Muslims are not suppressing sexuality between individuals. On the contrary, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he said, get married, multiply, because we will be the largest nation of the revealed religions on the Day of Judgment. So Muslims generally have large families. So this is not monkism, this is not opus dei, right? But it is a healthy, natural relationship. Okay, so this is the basis of, how we are, functioning within Islam. Okay, so I want to, as we go on, I want to open up the floor if there's any questions concerning these approaches to sexuality before we start looking at some other aspects within this subject. This is a big subject, by the way. It should take a whole semester, really, a whole year to cover it. But I'm trying to, concentrate. Questions? Yeah.
You mentioned how severe, the sin of zina is.
Yeah.
How does someone go about attaining forgiveness if they committed this?
Yeah, this is an advanced question. Of course, there is tawbah, there is repentance. It's based on repentance. And you have to study the whole issue of repentance itself in terms of, what is, needed in that. In terms of punishments within Islam, the general hudud, or the punishments, do not, they don't apply except in an Islamic state, in an area where Islam is established, and there are courts and there's judges. So the hudud do not apply in general, but tawbah, which is repentance, applies. And Allah says in the Quran, "Inna Allah yaghfiru dhunuba jami'an," Allah forgives all sins. So all sins can be forgiven. Okay? Any other general questions concerning the approaches to sexuality? Anything online?
No.
Now, the challenge that we are facing is the society we're living in today. Okay? And this is an extreme society where the hedonism, Ishtar's law, the rainbow society, has taken over everything. And it's just invading all aspects of life. And because we are heavily influenced by social media, then we are bombarded with images, and it has changed people's minds and the way that we approach each other. So now, we're trying to practice Islam, but yet we're in a society that seems to be going in the other direction. I want to give an example. Some years ago, I was invited to do a talk in New York. It was a big challenge with another Imam, Imam Siraj Wahaj. Maybe some of you might have heard of him before. So Imam Siraj and I had to do this talk. And you know what the title was? Dating in Islam. Okay, so this was confrontation talk, right? New York City, dating in Islam. And the way he approached it, Jazakallah khair, very interesting way that he began his talk. And he said that some years ago, a group of brothers and sisters went for a weekend in the forest, in the wood, to get away from the city. And so they went to the state called Vermont. Some of you may have heard. Vermont's a very foresty type of, state. And so they went there and they were outside and they were drinking the natural water. They have mineral springs. So when they came to the mineral water and they drank the mineral water, many of the brothers and sisters spit it out. Because they said, this water tastes strange. Because they were so used to drinking polluted water. Polluted water from the Hudson River. When they got spring water, it tasted terrible because they're so used to polluted water. So when you approach the Islamic concept of relationships, it's almost like drinking that mineral water, right? It seems so strange based upon what we're used to hearing and seeing around us. It takes time to get used to drinking mineral water, right? And really, Islam is a way of life. It's a society. And that's part of our challenge. That, Islam is a society. We have families, we have towns, villages. So we have a society, an infrastructure around us. And that infrastructure, it reinforces Islamic values. So when you have a society that reinforces your values, then it's normal. It's like everybody's drinking mineral water. So it's normal, right? When somebody comes with polluted water, that would taste strange to everybody. You see the difference? But we're in the middle of this polluted lake. Okay, so we have to discuss it. We need to be open, though. Don't hold back and try to be, good Muslims, whatever. Be honest, right? That's the purpose of this session, to be as honest as possible. And so the question was dating in Islam. Okay, my response to this, and similar to Imam Siraj, is the title is wrong. There is no dating in Islam. So you got to change the title, okay? Because when you say a date in this society, and I don't know if it's changed, right? You have to correct me, because I'm not up with some of these recent things that's been going on, right? But coming from my time, and that's not far away, 80s, 90s, whatever, it's not that far away. When a male and female, when they go on a date, right, it is possible in this society, on the date, that they can do everything that a married couple does. There's no real, limits in the society. It doesn't always happen, but there's no real limits. When I was coming up, and it's not, I'm not 100 years old, but I'm trying to say, because time has changed so rapidly, you won't believe this, man. Even from the 90s, right? How times have changed. But even from back in the 70s and 80s to a certain extent, when people, the average people in Canada, I'll use this as an example, go out on a date, then generally the parents of the girl need to know when she's coming home. Okay? This is not Muslims. They need to know when she's coming home, right? And sometimes they might even want to meet the boy who's taken her somewhere. Okay, there were limits, right? And even on television itself, there was a television program when I was growing up. It was called I Love Lucy. So this is going way back before you all. And the I Love Lucy, according to the standards in Hollywood, Lucy and her husband could not be shown on television sleeping in the same bed. It was against the rules. So anytime nighttime came, it's a sitcom, right? So nighttime comes, right? So whenever it is, Lucy's in a bed and her husband's in the bed. They could not show them together in the same bed, because that's breaking morality standards within a Judeo-Christian society that still was dominating in America, right, at the time. If you look now, after the sexual revolution, now what is shown on the television, it is like what we used to call XXX rated movies. It's a normal movie. Even the dress of people, and especially with women's dress especially, and I say this with all respects to the society, but I'm going to be straightforward, that many of the styles that women are wearing in society a few decades ago would be prostitutes. It would literally be what we call street women, who were wearing these tight things with high heels and painted up, and those are street walkers, prostitutes. But it has become normal dress, okay, because of Ishtar, because of this hedonistic society and the changes that we have gone through. The Islamic position is that, and I'm going to just give you the basis of the position. Basically, in our relationships, we first have what is called Setal Aura. And that means that we need to cover our private parts. Okay? And the private parts for a woman basically are supposed to be everything, except the face and the hands should actually be covered. Okay? How you cover it will vary from society to society. There's no set dress. Black clothing is not something you have to wear within Islam. It is more of a cultural thing of the Arabs. But it is not what you have to wear, when you're, covering up. The idea is that the clothing is supposed to be not tight and not see-through, right? And it is not bright colors, right? And it's not making noise and everything like that, right? And also not wearing perfume that is like loud perfume. You know what I mean by loud? So when she walks by or she walks by, everybody's smelling her. That's loud. That's what I mean by loud. I lived in Saudi Arabia in the 70s. And you would not believe this. I came from the States, right? And I have seen everything. I accepted Islam at 20. And I lived in Saudi Arabia. And at that time, the women covered everything. And they wore like 3 sets of veil over as they walked. And one woman used to walk down the street in this Bedouin area that I lived. And she would wear bangles that made noise. And she would wear heavy perfume. And she walked down the street. And the bad boys would stand on the corner. And they would be looking, as she walked by, looking at her ankles, trying to get a look at her ankles, right? Now, this is a joke for me coming out of America, right? But they were like, we say, checking out her ankles, right? But her intention was almost the same as somebody today who's dressing like a prostitute on the corner. It was to catch their attention, right? But she did it within the framework of that society itself, okay? So even when you cover yourself, you can still do wrong. I'm giving you the example. So just because you have a lot of clothes on doesn't mean you're modest. Modesty begins within. You're modest how you carry yourself. And we have lowering the gaze for male and female. Now, dress in Islam is not only for women. Now, that's something that many Muslim men do not understand. Dress is also for Muslim men. Muslim men are not supposed to be wearing tight, see-through clothing. The awrah is from above the navel to below the knee. That's the part that has to be covered on a man. But the sunnah for a man to be covering should also be covering over their chest area, as well in the sunnah. And the clothing of a man should be not see-through and not tight, right? And not of loud colors and things, like that. So men are supposed to be covering, and really the Muslim man is supposed to distinguish themselves in their dress. If you really look at Islamic society, you will see every country where Islam went, the Muslim men distinguished themselves. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man tashabbaha biqawmin fahuwa minhum." Whoever appears like a tribe is one of them. Okay? So you should be able to look at a Muslim man, you should be able to look at it and say, that's a Muslim, before he tells you what his name is. That's what it's actually supposed to be. Now, we are living in a society like we're living in, but that's what a man is supposed to be. A Muslim man is supposed to distinguish himself. And that's really, for him, is actually a benefit. And when I came into Islam here, I was very serious about it, and I would wear Muslim clothes, on the subway, in the TTC, and actually that was a blessing too, because if there was a woman who was up to no good, right, and then she looked at me, right, she'd say, no, this is Ayatollah Khomeini or something like this, like, what is this, right? And she'd look at someone else, right? She wouldn't look at me, right? Because of how I looked. If I was cool, my hair slicked back and, whatever, and then okay, that's a possibility. So your dress informs people about your intentions, even for men too. And I say this I'm emphasizing this point because we're not going to put everything on sexuality on women. That is a mistake. So lowering the gaze, especially on behalf of the men, is we're supposed to lower our gaze, which means that you're not supposed to be staring people down. The first look, and it's generally the men who have the problem with their eyes, especially in the summer season. Now the cold comes, we can relax to a certain extent because people have to cover up. But when the warm season comes, it's a test on men. And so the Prophet ﷺ said, if you look at somebody, the first gaze is for Allah. That's not your fault. So if you look, that's for Allah. But then when you look back the second time, that's for shaitan. That's for the devil. See the two, between the two gazes? Right? You look the first time, okay. But you look the second time, that's the shaitan. And you can't try to trick Allah. There were some of these people coming out of the east coast of America, they wanted to be smart guys, and they think, so what they would do is, they would, when they look the first time, they hold it. You understand what he's doing? He holds the first look, right? That's for Allah, right? You can't fool Allah. His intention was wrong. His intention was wrong. Okay? So lower the gaze, cover yourself, basic modesty. That is the basic within Islamic society. At the same time, we are a natural people. We do get married. There is attraction, and there's nothing wrong with attraction. Okay? You can be attracted to somebody, but the challenge is, how do you fulfill your attraction? That's our challenge. Because within hedonistic society, within this society, you fulfill it like the animals do, right? They see somebody and they go for it. Okay? Within Islamic society, no. There's limits. And there's ways that you can, go about, getting that across. Again, our challenge is we are a society. We're like a village. So if you live within a society, you'll be naturally walking down the street, you have neighbors, you'll see each other. Families will know each other. You might get a job and you see somebody in the job. There might be school, somebody's there in the school, so the attraction can come. You might even have conversations. Okay, there's nothing wrong with basic conversations. Okay, but it is the next level, the level of the socialization where the desires come in. That is where the limits come. So basically, for this part, to make a long story short, we have what is called controlled going out. I don't want to use the word date, because date has got too many negative understandings, connotations, right? And chaperone date, it gets too much in this Christian type of thing. We're not talking about. What we're saying is that it is permissible if there is some retraction, then the family of the girl especially knows that. They're approached. And they know, and then they can come together and they can go out somewhere and do things, together. But the only thing they are not allowed to do is what is called khalwa, and that is to be alone. Right? For the two to be alone, the Prophet ﷺ said, if a male and a female are alone, who are not in the same immediate family, then the third party with them is the devil. Okay? The khalwa. That is what is different. Okay? It's okay. You can turn it off now. So the khalwa is what is different, in terms of going about. And then, so this is where the intentions, come about. And then they talk to each other. I mean, I'll open up the floor before I go into some practical ways, that we have understood. But up until now, the floor is open for any questions or understandings that anybody has. Floor is open there. Go ahead.
So in terms of saying not being alone,
Yeah.
out in a public place, but you don't specifically have, like the sister doesn't have like a mahram around, but you're in an open place, is that considered allowed or not allowed?
Right. The mahram means like a family member, right? That's what that means. Technically speaking, it is allowed when there's a lot of people there. However, some people would say, even though sometimes you're in a crowd or you're in a big place, you can go off in a corner and everybody's going about their own business, right? You know, so many people would still say it's better to have somebody there, but they don't have to be immediately sitting next to you there. They might be on the other side of the room or, you know, whatever. But technically speaking, it could be okay because it's not alone. Okay? Of course, intentions are important. And we have to try our best. We're not going to be 100%, but we have to try our best there. Okay, floor is open for any other general question. There, go ahead.
What about like dates or video calls?
Video call dates.
Because it's one-on-one still.
Yeah. So video call dates would be the same there. They should not actually be alone. Because really, there's a lot of things can happen in these video calls, as we know, right? There's a lot of people fall down. So the video would be the same. You know, the video calls as well. Yeah.
I have a question, like it says that when there is one man and another woman, then there is the third is the shaitan. What about if we take the Uber, the driver is male and then you are the female or you're going somewhere? What about that?
Yeah, I mean, taking the Uber or cab or something like that, that is different in a sense. I mean, real overly strict societies might not even want that. But I'm saying in this society, there's nothing wrong because the intention is you're just taking a cab. This is when you're going out with somebody. You know what I mean by going out? Let's go to a movie. Let's go to a risk convention together or whatever. Let's do something. We're going out, right? That's what it means. Let's go for coffee. That's not an Uber driver. Okay? Floor is open.
What if the purpose of the two being together, even in public, is for educating themselves in Islam? So, like, someone could teach me Arabic, and that's in public.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the intention could be good, but then at the same time, we have to deal with the reality of our desires. Because, you know, and I'm going to be a little graphic about this, right? The sister's there with the brother, and she's teaching him Arabic. And he's sitting there looking at her, right? And she's saying, alif, ba, ta. You think he's thinking about alif, ba, ta? I mean, let's deal with reality, right?
He's not attracted to her, he probably is.
Right, but I'm saying, okay, maybe he's not, but I mean, if you don't feel something, there's something wrong with you, man. If you don't, right? So really, I mean, it wouldn't, that wouldn't supersede, that idea of the khalwa. It still should not be. Because our desires are so tricky. And the shaitan can come to you in so many different ways, that things that you never thought of can actually come. So to avoid that, remember what the verse says, وَلَا تَقْرَبُ الزِّنَا. Don't come close to it. Not don't do it. Don't come close to it. Be safe. Because it's going to ruin everything. It's going to ruin your body. It can ruin your family relationships. It can ruin your society. So just stay away from it and be safe. Okay? Question? Yeah.
So in terms of lowering the gaze, is there a distinction between, like, you're walking on the street and you see somebody, you lower your gaze, versus you're talking to somebody, getting to know them for the purposes of marriage, and you're trying to figure out, am I attracted to this person to the point where I want to marry them? You have to, I would think, look at them a little bit more. Is there a distinction there in how we have to behave?
Yes, I mean, there are some things, like, for instance, on the job or at school or something like this, especially within the society we're living in, okay, that, you will talk to people, but you talk to people in the job about business, right? So the person's female on the job, asking you, Abdu, can you do this, assignment? Yes, I can do this assignment. It's your job, right? So you look at them, you don't stare, right? But you look at them, you get the assignment, you do the assignment. Okay? If you finish the job and you say, well, Sally, what are you doing tonight? That's another conversation, right? Business is business, and social life is social life. You know, and sometimes when people come from other societies, they do strange things. I was doing a program it's a Dawa program, and we were in Miami, Florida. And you know, if you've been in Miami, right, close to Miami Beach where this university is, people walk around in bikinis, right? So we're doing a Dawa program trying to bring non-Muslims to the program, right? So we said, okay, we'll have a section, brothers can be there, sisters, but we'll have a neutral section where non-Muslims can come and sit. You can't force them to be, you know, in separate. This is a Dawa program, right? One of the brothers, you know, I don't want to say him, from Saudi Arabia, right? He's an extremist, right? He said, no, all the women, they must be way in the back, cover it. So wait a minute, but this is a Dawa program, man. He want a veil there. I said, okay, why? He said, because it's a fitna. It's a trial and a test. We can't do this. I said, brother, do you go to the University of Miami? Yes. Do you have women in your class? Yes. Is some of your teachers female? Yes. What do you do, man? Like, what do you do in the class? That's a double standard. You can be in the class and say, you know, listen, looking at your teacher, trading homework, you know, with Sally and Jane, but you can't have a Dawa. See, so, you know, this is not an easy, you know, area, especially for people who come out of societies that are more restricted, and then in this society, this is not easy, right? But we have to be open-minded in this sense to try to deal with the situation. Okay, floor is open. Any questions online? Does anybody have? Floor is open for any other questions. Mm-hmm.
What is your stance on like some of the newer matrimonial apps for Muslims, that are very specific to Muslims?
Yeah. Okay, well, now, in order to deal with the issue, because the problem we're facing now is that when we start practicing Islam, right, then there's a natural separation of male and female. But the point is, how do you get married? I gave a lecture in Melbourne, Australia, and it was a big one, right? There was a lot of people came out. And after the lecture, there was a group of sisters, a lot of sisters, maybe 200 of them or something. And they said, we need to ask you a question. I said, okay. So I went to the sisters section, and they said, we have many single sisters. Where are the brothers? Like, we don't have any brothers to get married. I said, it was strange to me because there was a lot of people in the lecture, right? And I said, well, I'll talk to the leadership. The next night, I did a program with the brothers. And a lot of brothers came out, and then they said, we have a question. Where are the sisters? Like, we need to get married, right? So I said, okay, wait a minute. You have a large body of male and female, both want to get married. But there's no way for them to come together. That's the challenge. Big challenge in our community. And the communities that have tried to stifle themselves and not allow any type of innovations to come, I mean positive innovations, to using technology or whatever it is. Their children and young people ended up committing fornication and adultery, and all kinds of strange things happen within their societies. I witnessed this myself. So there has to be a way for us to use the technology, but that's not easy. On one occasion, in UK, there was a brother, organized brother, he was from Bangladesh, real activist brother, and a friend of mine. So he said, we found that there are many new Muslims who have no way to get married. Every tribe has got their own people, right? So they got their cousins and their friends and whatever, but the new Muslims, like, who do they have? How can you meet somebody in a halal way? How? So we organized a big gathering, and he asked me, we need someone to be the imam. This was in London. So they gathered together a group of, say, about 60 people or so. And I gave a talk first that said there's nothing to be ashamed of in religion. La haya fid din. Okay, so you can speak out. We're in a group together. So then we divided the groups into sections, and you had 6 sisters and 6 brothers. Okay, the 6 will say, whatever, just a number, say 10 brothers, 10 sisters, and you have these groups, 6 groups. So each person has got a number, C2, D7. And so the brothers and sisters sit together, okay? People are there, and we ask a question. If there is a difference of opinion in marriage, how would you solve this? So the brothers begin. So Ali said, I am Ali, and I came from Mombasa in Kenya, and I'm studying at the University of London. And if I had my choice, I would take consultation with my wife. Sisters are looking at him, okay? Then all the brothers answer the question. Then the sisters answer the question, okay? And the brothers are looking at them, okay? Then after a period of time, we say, switch. So the brothers switch to the next circle. And it goes around until everybody has seen everybody. And we had the pictures of the brothers, especially on the wall, with their numbers, and their thing. And they were allowed, especially, sometimes a sister, but especially the brothers, in this case, being more aggressive. They said, I'm interested in sister B2. Or she may be interested in brother D7. Brothers' faces and things are theirs, sisters are there. Okay, so now, she gets a message. Brother B2 is interested in you. So they get a chance, she goes to the wall and looks at the picture. Okay, that's brother B2. And she says, no way. I'm not interested in him. Okay? And it keeps going on until, out of the group, there were people interested in each other. So we had another room where you had a table and 2 chairs, and then you sit down and you talk. And you have people who are there supervising, and you sit and you talk, some little tea or whatever, and then after a period of time, some of the people who had this, they say, okay, we're interested. So when they were interested, now our job ended and it goes to the wali, the family of the girl. So the family of the girl is informed. But so that was a halal way to meet somebody. You see, he's trying to do something. He's trying to innovate in another way. Okay?
So Sheikh, my earlier question was in this context. So now you're, like you said, the sister's answering the question and all the brothers are looking at her because they're looking to see if they want this person to be their spouse. Is that looking different from the looking where you're supposed to lower your gaze?
It's not, because they shouldn't be staring. So the look is just, they should be looking away most of the time.
Okay.
But they can look to see, the person, but not staring them down. No. Now, in terms of the apps, over the years, things have developed. There have been websites, now it's turned into apps. You even had conventions like the RISC convention that's coming up. Do they still have the matrimonial thing? ISNA convention is the big one in Chicago. They have the matrimonial thing. But some of these things got out of control. Where people are just going there hunting down men, hunting down women. They got out of control. But I was informed that there are certain apps where the people who control it, they take care of what they're doing. So in other words, when you join that, you have to fill out an application. So you have to say who you are, what your background is, what your interests are. You ask certain questions, right? You supply a photo. Sometimes, there may even have to be somebody who sees you, whatever. They take time to investigate. And then the sisters also can join that, and they try to pair you up as closely as possible. So the person sees you may be interested in one of these. Okay, so then they can choose from that. They try to be personal, as much as possible with the people to try to protect. But once any decision is made, before any going out happens, then the family of the girl has to know. They have to know. Okay?
In the marriage process, does the man's family have to be involved?
Yes, generally speaking, the man's family should be involved. Definitely.
So, like how, like to what level?
The man's family, because when you're getting married, you're marrying somebody's family in Islam, right? You're not just marrying that person. You think you are. But you got a mother-in-law there too, right? You know, and you got a family, and you have traditions, and you have a lifestyle. So it's on both sides, okay? And so the man's family, you know, is involved. And, you know, the Prophet ﷺ said there's suitability. Suitability is a whole nother area. That there's certain questions that you need to ask, but the family generally is involved. In an Islamic society, the family would come forward, somebody from the family would come with the young man to the family of the girl. So they would, because it's two families coming together. If there is no family, and that's the case where there was no Muslims, right? That's the case we were dealing with, because their family would not be involved. Okay, then there would be, wali would be somebody, a senior person in the community could act as a representative also. So the family should be involved. But it's not the same as the girl, because in the girl's case, her father has rights over her in terms of blocking the marriage, because he's her wali. Whereas in the case of the man, the family can culturally block it, but it's not the same strength. You know, it's because more protection of the woman. Because from the woman comes the children and the whole society. So this protection's got to be there. So the special protection that the sister doesn't fall in a confusion. And we are facing, you know, some real challenges today because of fake news and artificial intelligence. You know, you got to watch out, even in these apps and all these things that are going on. You don't even know who you're talking to, right? You could be talking to a machine. So there's a lot of challenges inside of this. But there have been some successful groups, you know, that are there. I don't know if Buna Muhammad, you know Buna Muhammad? Many of you may know him. He's a spoken artist. He was in, I'll have to ask him. I haven't spoken to him about this in a while. He was running, you know, one of these matrimonials. It was a fairly successful one. So there are some people, I don't know if you know, we're not at the point where we're recommending this, but there may be some that could be recommended. Okay? But there's got to be ways of doing this to come together. Okay? Any questions online? In New York City, if you had a small community, see, we have large communities now. But if we were a small community where everybody in the community sort of knows each other, and in that case, there was one community where the imam and his wife, they knew everybody in the community. And so they put out the word and they said, anybody who's interested in another Muslim, you know, come to my office. So all the ones that were interested, he had a long table and he let them all sit there and talk. And him and his wife were there. But that is a community. There's another community in New York that was very creative, and they developed a tea room. It's like a coffee tea room. So it's a place where you could go on Friday night, right? And you could go there and drink coffee and drink tea and have halal food. And there's interaction with Muslims. And it is supervised. So therefore, you could be going to a place and, you know, run into somebody. Okay, so they were trying to be as creative as possible. And really, our community has to try to be as, you know, creative in this area. You know, it's scary for a lot of people. And so in some communities, they bury their heads in the sand. They say, no problem, no problem. But it is a problem, especially now, in the rainbow time. It's a major problem. This Gen X, you know, whatever coming up now, this is big, big time. So there has to be creative solutions to this. Okay? Floor is open for any other. Go ahead.
So just a bit of a time check. So
Yeah.
the original plan was to do a potluck right at the bottom of the hour. We have about 20 minutes till Isha. So is everybody okay to come back after Isha? Or
Yeah, so if anybody wants to come back for the potluck after Isha, then, you know, you can.
for everybody, right?
Yeah, it can be for everybody.
Thanks to the poll, at least.
Yeah, it can be, you know, for everybody.
People didn't say yes, but I see they still came with food, so.
Yeah, but some, you know, you can, you know, I mean, we still will have, you know, the areas that we eat in, but definitely it's possible. Because this is the last class for the semester, because IIT closes down now. All the classes close. Right, so this will be the last class for a while. We'll let you know when we begin. But anyhow, that's the end. We still have time for more questions that anybody, you know, may have in this area.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's saying that in terms of like proposing marriage or finding a suitable person, for the female side, the father would be involved. What if there's no father figure? Who would take on that role?
Right, that's a very good question. The Prophet ﷺ said, "As-Sultan wali man la waliya lah," that the Sultan, the authority in the Muslim community, will be the wali, meaning the guardian, of anybody who doesn't have a guardian. So in our community, there's supposed to be imams and senior people in the community who will become a wali, or there's another word called wakil. That's sort of a representative, you know, for somebody who needs a representative. So it has to be from the community itself. See, Muslims, we're supposed to have more of a relationship than just Assalamu alaikum, alaikum salam, I'll see you next week. We're supposed to be actually like a family, right? That's what it's supposed to be. And this is one of the areas. It's a challenge to the leadership. But they have to realize this is not a business, right? This is a family, it's a community. So there has to be a way, you know, of doing this. And right now, like here in the IIT, there are certain imams and leaders here who would have to bear the responsibility of being like a wakil, a representative for somebody who needed a representative. That's how it would have to go.
Would it first go to like your uncle or like your dad's or mother's?
Yeah, so then it could be, yeah, your dad, the father, you know, the grandfather, uncle, you know, whatever it could be, you know, would go like that to be the wali. In some cases, if there's no parents, it might even be the brothers, you know, somebody, you know, male member in the family, you know, can be a spokesman, a representative for the family, you know, to intercede, you know, in that case. Otherwise, it's got to be somebody who's respected in the community to help, especially the new Muslim. This is a challenge. That's why every masjid should have like a new Muslim corner. That's why we redeveloped this again after COVID, because these are the problems that are going to happen. And we will have to do this. It's going to develop to the point where if this does come, if this challenge does come, then, you know, we will have to do that. Is that some of the door? This is the door. Oh, it locked? Yeah, question.
Say you were to approach someone for the purpose of marriage and you wanted to get, you know, their wali's number. What's a good way to keep that interaction halal and make sure that, you know, you're not overstepping any boundaries?
So the person, say it again, the person approaches somebody for marriage.
Yeah, and you want to get the wali's number or get into contact with them, but you don't have that contact information already. That process of getting, like, can you even speak to them? Like
Yeah, so it's possible to get it if the man, he can get it from the woman. You can say like, you know, what's your wali's, you know, thing. If somebody's, you know, is it, say for instance, I'll just give an example, they're in school or something like this, whatever, you know, and they're trading homework or whatever, and, you know, he's feeling something, right? And she's feeling something. He should say to her, okay, you know, he's got to be honest and say, I'm interested, you know, if she's interested, who's your wali? So he would need to get, you know, the phone number of the wali and let the family know, and then start the process, you know, of meeting. And, you know, the other challenge that we face here is cross-cultural marriages. Because in many of the Muslim societies, people are in ethnic groups. But here, all the ethnicities are together. And some ethnicities are not used to marrying outside of themselves. Okay? Even within their cultures. And I found this out from being imam in the Jami Mosque, even Indo-Pakistani people in terms of the different types of people. I couldn't believe it. Kashmiri, Punjabi, whatever, and I couldn't believe it. People didn't even want to marry each other. That's all breaking down with the younger generation. It's also breaking down, with racial things, tribal things. It's breaking down now. So the challenge is for the families to open up their minds. And that's where the leadership has to be involved to discuss with the family. Sometimes the imam has to be brought in to talk to the family, man. Sometimes has to be.
Are there guidelines for like how long you should talk to somebody to get to know them to determine marriage? And part of the reason for the question is
Yeah.
if you're, meeting a few times, especially with family, people can be like on their best behavior. You don't really see their true personality sometimes until a difficult situation comes out.
Yeah.
So maybe this is more a practical question, not really a fake question. How would you suggest that a person goes about that process so that they feel that they've gotten to know the person enough that like I can commit to marrying you
Yeah.
without crossing boundaries?
Well, you know that there's certain aspect. There's a thing called suitability. And the Prophet ﷺ said, when you want to get married, you marry for 4 things. You marry for beauty, you marry for family, you marry for wealth, and you marry for religion. And then he said, if marry according to the religion, and you'll be successful. But he named 4 areas. So if you're marrying somebody, the first part is beauty. And that is where beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, as they say. That's where, when you meet somebody, if you're interested in that person's suitable for you, whatever, that's something that's a natural thing. But the other thing is wealth, and especially on the part of the man. And that is where the family is supposed to do investigation of the man. So there needs to be investigation. And normally what we would say is you get somebody, if the man is interested, he needs to bring somebody as a witness for his character. It's not just how sweet he talks and, whatever. No. Somebody who the family knows, who can testify for him, his character. And the first thing the father or the wali should say, if the man comes say, I would like to marry your daughter, your first is like, do you have a job? Like, you got to know, how are you going to provide for this family? If he says, no, I'll make dua and the angels will bring food through the window. It's okay, wait a minute, man. Deal with reality because of this society. So wealth, and that doesn't mean everybody has to have, a house and a car, and no. But at least a way of earning wealth and, whatever. The other is nasab. That is your family, your genealogy. And that is where your tribe or your family, we are different in some ways. There's different personalities. And that is taken into consideration. Of course, these generation now, being in Canada, the new Canadian, society, we're all Canadian, we love the Raptors and, whatever, and we're Canada. But we do come from cultures. And cultures have their nuances. Example, for instance, there are some cultures, I won't mention the country, but there's like countries where people are mountain people. And mountain people tend to be rough. Because if you're not rough, you're not going to survive on a mountain. Especially desert people. They have to be tough. Other people come from, nice climates where it's tropical climate. Mangoes and 30-degree temperature all year. They tend to be a little bit softer in character. Okay? That's just their character, right? So when a mountain person wants to marry somebody from the seashore in the tropics, you have to make sure that they can really get along with each other. Because this is where personality comes in, right? And that has to be investigated. However, we can overcome this, especially with the new joint culture that we have living here and more understanding of Islam, you can overcome this. But it is taken into consideration. What happened in the past, and I dealt with a lot of marriages before, not now, I don't get into this area, but in the past, some families, they say to their son, go do what you want to do, but you're going to marry your cousin. So you can do whatever you want to do in college, but you're marrying your cousin, because that's just the way their tribe is, right? But all that is breaking down now. We used to have arranged marriages, right? Where the girl's husband is flying in, and she never even saw this guy physically. She just saw him online. And maybe in the past that might have worked in a different society, but not today. Okay? So this is part of the challenge that we face. And we'll continue our discussion, inshallah. There's a lot involved in this. And we want to be as creative as possible. I don't know, are they about to call the adhan now? Yeah. So Pandora's box is open, right? But, inshallah, we try to be as creative as possible and make dua. Those of you who can go to the RIS conference, it is a good conference to go to. You can meet people, you can, there's a lot of really good speakers that will be there. Nice bazaar where you can get Islamic things. So I do advise you if you can go to the RIS conference. Reviving Islam conference. Yeah.
Also the IIT winter dinner.
There's a dinner for the IIT December 25th also. You can attend the dinner and be part of our community here. We also encourage you to be involved in that. And for those online, this will be our last class for a while. We'll let you know when the New Muslim Corner begins again online. But keep in touch with us on Facebook, Sheikh Abdullah Hakim Quick, public figure, right? Or the website, hakimquick.com. Or Instagram, it's abdullah.quick. There's YouTube, Abdullah Hakim Quick. I'm not a TikTok man or any, I'm not, but I will be making some more things, inshallah. So have a safe journey home. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So those who want to